Welcome back to the pod. Today I am sitting with Chase Bartlett, who has an app called Match Coach, and we're going to kind of talk about what it is, what it does, how he's looking to move it forward, possibly scale it, and you're going to learn right along with me. So, welcome, Chase.
Thanks, Dewey. Nice
How
to be
are you?
here. Doing great.
Good.
Happy to be joining you.
I've known you, I guess, since you were 14. So when I
I
first
think
moved
that's
to
right.
Frisco in 2008, and you were still up at Lakes Tennis Academy, I believe, before
Yep.
you transitioned down to Austin.
Yep.
A
Those were
long
the
time
days.
ago.
That was a very long
Yeah.
time ago. That was a very long time ago. Things have changed.
Yeah.
Uh,
So welcome. So you're coaching, and you have a technology type business.
exactly. So I am coaching part-time at Austin Tennis Academy, and then when I'm not doing that, I would say I'm working pretty much all the time on building a sports tech app where clubs can sort of live stream, provide analytics to players, and make it easier than ever to coach remotely, which is kind of the goal.
Okay. That was a 50,000 foot view. Can you bring
Yep.
it down a little bit, maybe to the cloud level, and
To the cloud
tell us
level.
about tell us about it?
Yeah, so the goal with Match Coach currently is to provide clubs with a way to increase their revenue and offer a better coaching product. And so the way that we do that is we install cameras at the facility on each court, and we built an app that makes it really easy for players, parents, coaches to record and then analyze that gameplay. So a player or a coach could leave a comment on a particular moment in the video, and all the player has to do is click on that comment and it'll take them to that exact moment where the feedback was applicable. The whole goal is understanding that most people in the coaching industry, coaches in particular, have chosen the life that they live to be away from technology, which is why tennis is typically one of the slower sports to adopt technology. Most coaches don't want to be behind a desk. They don't want to be in front of a computer. They want to be out there experiencing life, coaching outside. So from a technology perspective, the whole goal is to make it really intuitive. And I think that's what I bring as a person who's coached as well, is understanding, okay, if we're going to design this app, we got to design it in a way that's really easy to use, simple. It's just as simple to coach on the app as it would be to coach in person, right? If we were on court together and you were like, Chase, why did you change direction there? Well, that's really what you would be doing in the app as well. You just click an audio comment and leave that feedback, and the player would see exactly what you mean. So that's the maybe cloud level view of what we're doing. There's more to it, but
Okay.
yeah, hopefully that's
I'm
a good
going to
summary.
start by saying I'm a fan. I haven't had an opportunity to dig in, but I also have a tech startup that I'm involved in, and I believe in what your app is supposed to do. I'm 63 now, so I'm getting old. For my 50th birthday, though, I was operating Samuel Grand Tennis Center in Dallas, and a group of parents got together and bought me a subscription to Dartfish. So I was kind of
Yep.
early in and diving into this whole thing that your
Mm-hmm.
app is designed to now do a better job at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tell me some of the stuff other than making notes on top of the app. Can you draw on it?
You can draw, you can leave text comments, you can leave audio comments, you can tag certain points. My goal is for the tagging to be AI based in the near term future, so that rather than leaving manual tags like, "Hey, this was a great shot, it was an ace, Chase's forehand winner down the line," AI will look at your video and provide you with all of the annotations that you need to understand exactly what happened. And my long term goal with this is not only to provide people with analytics, but with insight. And so what that means is interpretation of analytics, which is where a lot of the existing analytics companies fall short. They might tell you that you made 50% of your first serves or 60% of your first serves, but they won't actually tell you, hey, when you served out wide of the forehand on your first serve on the deuce side, you won 84% of those points. You only did it 24% of the time, though. That would have been a great opportunity for you to take advantage of that if you recognize that pattern and do it more. And obviously, you'd say a little more concisely. But you get the idea that there are things that happen in a match that if you looked at it, you could say, okay, there's an actual correlation between winning and losing if I did these things better. And that's the goal, is to look at what's actually happening that's impacting the match result, and how could I coach somebody through an app the same way that I would coach somebody if I was on court with them. So that's what we're striving for.
Okay, so here's a scenario, and tell me how you would handle it currently and how you might in the future. So I'm looking at someone's serve percentage, first serve percentage, but I believe that their serve percentage is first serve percentage is 63%. But what it really was maybe a bit higher once I pull out the deuce points and then figure out where that is. And so being able to go and look and see, is the person making the same error over and over again on
Sure.
those deuce points? Is that something that you're hoping that the analytics will provide and the feedback and have the context of when they're happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I think taking a deeper look into what's actually going on, like in your example, if all of my mistakes were on the do side, then the number 63% first serves made doesn't really capture that. If it showed 63% of first serves made on the ad side and 5% first serves made on the do side, it would give you a pretty clear understanding that you should go practice hitting a bucket of serves on the do side next time you step on the
What
court.
if it comes down to my serve percentage on the deuce side is pretty good. First point of the game, 50, all the alls, 15 all, 30 all, 40 15, and reversed. But it's once it becomes that deuce point
Yep.
that I'm making my errors. And so therefore I'm identifying that it's probably a mental issue rather than an actual serve issue because I can serve fine the rest of the time. Are those the types of insights that might be able to come out of
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would require quite an advanced product that would have to understand what the score was in different situations. So you'd need to be tracking players, outcomes from points. And I hope that that's something that we can achieve in the next few years. Technology is becoming more and more accessible, even for smaller teams or people that are still new in the industry. So I think that's something that can be accomplished, and I hope that we can get there. It's certainly something that we're going to pursue.
Okay, so back to where it is today. It's available currently at Austin Tennis Academy.
Correct.
And is it for ATA players only, or is this something, say, because ATA hosts like 26 tournaments a year. So if you're playing a tournament and your site happens to be Austin Tennis Academy, is it something that you can take advantage of?
If you're playing at ATA, it's definitely something you can take advantage of. To explain our vision with this and where we want to go with it, currently, like we're selling it to other clubs as well. So we sold 28 smart courts in our first 8 weeks of launching the product, and we're hoping to keep that going and scale and scale and scale. But the experience that you might have if you're playing at ATA is you might be able to scan a QR code and start a recording, whatever court you're on. Now, we actually put up these signs that allow you to take a laminated piece of paper in and out of them. And the reason that we did that is so normally during day-to-day operations, players, coaches, parents can just scan the QR code to start a recording. And coaches can watch the live streams at any time. And that's up to the club to decide if they want players to be able to watch the live streams, coaches to be able to watch the live streams, if they want to live stream events, if they want to do it 24/7. Ultimately, we provide that option to the club to decide how they want to live stream and who they want to make that accessible to. But the reason we have those QR codes with a laminated piece of paper is we want to provide revenue generating opportunities for the clubs so that they can make much more than they spend on the initial match coach investment. So at tournaments, for example, ATA is planning on creating pieces of paper, laminating them that say, hey, head to the tournament desk for an opportunity to get recording of your film. And we'll probably have like a little square checkout, and ATA will start charging players at tournaments a certain amount. It's up to ATA to decide how they want to price things. but they'll provide them with the opportunity to record their matches throughout the tournament. So that's just one of many ways that we hope that we can provide academies and clubs and country clubs with ways to generate revenue through the services that we're offering.
Okay, so this is a cool idea, and I want to dig into how it can expand beyond a small number.
Mm.
Is when you sell this service to a club, does that include equipment, installation? Is it a model that's somewhat flexible and they can decide, say, they already have the cameras on their courts and they're just looking for an integration? How would that work?
So a typical rollout would be somebody purchases a set of cameras and we will send them those cameras pre-configured along with a security recording box that captures film 24/7. So they have a backup in case there's any incidents or things that need to be reviewed. And also a pre-configured gateway box that allows the cameras to stream securely to our servers. So the scenario is a club opens a box with a match coach label on it. They take those cameras, plug them in, install them on the fence. We'd ship them with mounts as well. Getting those cameras up and installing them is super simple. You literally do it with a wrench, and then the club would be responsible for installing conduit and laying some wire, essentially connecting those cables to the cameras in the boxes.
Fiber's all the rage
Yep.
nowadays. So are we connecting the cameras via copper, kind of coax cable at the moment,
It's
or
just
is
a
it?
Cat6 cable, power over Ethernet, PoE. So all you have to do is plug one of those security boxes into the wall and plug the gateway box into a router at the facility. And PoE cables will go from that security box out to the cameras. And you don't have to worry about power or internet or things like that. It's all taken care of with that one cable.
Okay, so what are we talking about bandwidth wise? Because I know when I'm dealing with streaming and things, having the number of cameras over NDI or things like that that are
Mm-hmm.
network protocols, that how would that, the more cameras means I need to have a bigger pipe.
Yep.
How is this
Yeah.
indicative? If I'm the Mobile Tennis Center with
Yeah.
however many courts they have,
Yes.
that's different than a little 8 club court, right?
Yep. So there's two answers to this question. One is right now, like the cameras that we're selling offer 3 megapixel resolution, 30 FPS, and so that comes out to about the club needing about 10 megabytes per second upload per camera. And from there, we can obviously reduce the bit rate. We can reduce the quality to find something that fits the club's needs. So if the club isn't able to have fiber for whatever reason, or is struggling with their Wi-Fi, or doesn't want to foot that bill, we can absolutely downgrade the quality of the image or the stream so that it fits within that pipe, like you're saying. The second part is we're currently working on a different streaming architecture that would allow us to use cameras that stream over 5G versus being plugged into the club's local internet. I think that this would avoid the need necessarily to install conduit and PoE and spend tens of $10,000 or ish on digging up trenches to run the wiring, and like we've had to do at ATA and things like that. It would make it much more accessible to clubs, and it would make it easier for us to scale rapidly as a result. But that's something that we're exploring. It's more of a research and development task for us than something I can give a specific rollout date to.
Well, but that's great to hear because it says that you're really thinking about the future, and so you're not asking someone to purchase something that will become obsolete when the next thing
Mm-hmm.
comes along and leapfrogs it. And
Yeah.
so thinking about that is great. Um, of what you just said, the 30 frames per second kind of jumps at me, which seems a little slow for sports. And so are you seeing stuttering, or how is that working out? Have you found so far?
30 frames per second seems to be, I think like 60 FPS would be the ideal for a streaming setup. part of the value that we're offering is that we're coming in at such a lower price point than competitors out there today, that the hardware for the first time ever is actually accessible so that a club could put up a camera on every single one of their courts. Won't go naming names, but the competitors in the industry right now, clubs are spending $10,000 a court in hardware and setup, and that's not affordable even for the best academies and country clubs in the world, unless you're USTA national campus and you have the resources to put 50 of them out on 50 courts. So my goal is to bring the hardware costs down,
Yeah.
while still providing a good enough streaming quality and service to provide players and coaches with an experience that they enjoy. And I think at 30 FPS, that's still achievable. I watch film from our cameras every single day, and I can say it's definitely, especially with the higher megapixel resolution, it's a comparable product.
I think about scaling and future proofing, and I'm talking to somebody about a facility that's being built, and I've started talking to them about the infrastructure and building in fiber drops at net posts and things, because the last thing you want to have to do is to dig up concrete on a tennis court in order
Mm-hmm.
to, or lay something on top of the court that might be a tripping hazard for some reason.
Absolutely.
Have you thought about like having some kind of white paper or something that exists that could tell a club, here's kind of what you need, do you have this, and then contact us if not, and we can help you with figuring out your infrastructure?
Yes, we've thought about that a lot. As we scale, we'll be creating documentation to provide each club with, to determine if Match Coach is a good fit, how many cameras they might be able to support given their current internet environment, how they would install those cameras if they're going for a permanent installation, what kinds of materials do they need. So my dad and I actually did the installation. We installed 500 feet of conduit and 1,000 feet of Cat 6. We went through a building, underground in multiple places, and across 6 courts in the middle of summer. So it was quite the project. It was one of the more
In
difficult.
Texas?
Yes, in Texas. So it was pretty hot. That was one of the more difficult things we've done, but we kept a running list of materials that we used, tried to put together a premium setup, and essentially we created a spreadsheet that we're going to share with clubs to say, hey, this is an example, this is a use case. Here's what it would take. Here's what we did across 6 courts. And I think that is a good starting point. Something that we'll always be iterating on is how do I clearly express whether this would be a good fit or not? What are the needs for you? How much is it going to cost? These are all questions that clubs are actively curious about. And again, going back to the idea, can we make it possible to do this without conduit and wiring? And would clubs be interested in that? That's something I'm definitely pursuing. So
Yeah, I think 5G is great. I just, being in the live streaming world to a degree, don't ever trust wireless. I'm like, hardwire wherever possible, because the
yep.
last thing you want is something that the cost of failure is critical to be reliant on something that might go down.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, that's something we're going to be evaluating as we go. There's lots of cameras that have those built in, like a 5G router built into the camera. And so we'll check out the performance of that. I mean, if we were to go that route, we would probably sort of ship a test kit to clubs that they could plug in and run a test stream and see how the 5G even performs at their location. That'd be a good starting point to understand, is this ballparkish? Is this working? But the long tail of things, there's trade-offs to both approaches. Absolutely. I think if we can build a camera that's portable and could last for a few hours, really opens up the door for players to be taking these cameras with them, not only at the facility, but to tournaments, right? If I could sell
okay.
4 cameras to Austin Tennis Academy, that could be permanent fixtures, live stream tournaments at ATA, or be used by the coaches whenever they have their kids playing a match play session. That would be great if they could then take those down, charge them up, and take them with them to T-Bar M or Dallas or wherever they're going to play their next tournament. That would be a big value add. So that would be something that would scale very quickly, I think, if we could do it.
How do you deal with, or maybe you don't have to, but the pushback that comes from another child being monitored? So I know that for a long time with the USTA, it was if you wanted to hang that camera on the fence for your kid's match, you were supposed to, at least as a courtesy, ask the parent of the other player, because you would be capturing them as well. Is that just a
Yep.
club to club thing for them to work out as they use it?
No, I mean legally right now, if people are playing at a tennis facility, that's considered open public space, and so it's fine to be recording in those environments. It's more of a courtesy for people to be asking opponents these days. Is it okay if I record? That's the nice thing to do. That's the right thing to do. There's no legal obligation, as far as I'm aware of, to do so. I'm not going to be providing legal advice on a podcast, but that is my understanding, and it's how it's been explained to me by people and refs in the USTA. Um, the other thing that we're working on is creating a waiver that might be a good foundation, like a sort of an example waiver we'll provide our clubs. So if they're having members or players playing tournaments, they have something that covers their legal bases as well, because that's something that ATA has thought of and we've been working on as well. So as soon as we create that, I would like to make it a template and share it with anyone who needs access to it.
What was the impetus for this idea coming forth? Were you thinking about solving a problem that you had seen yourself or for yourself, or what made you think of this?
The problem was that even at one of the best tennis academies in the country, I rarely got coaching on my matches. If I went and played a tournament, coaches from ATA would go, but each coach would be responsible for monitoring 5 or 6 kids. So what the feedback and the coaching looks like is it's either like split set coaching, like, hey, here are 2, 3 things you needed to do. Super helpful. Very important to have a coach there for that. Or I'd come off after a win or a loss and I'd just get some notes. And the notes would be pretty general. And again, this is the experience that you would consider top of the line, right, at Austin Tennis Academy. And so what happens is I never watched myself play. I'm a visual learner. I'm an extremely visual learner. I think it's like 65% of people are visual learners. So there's a lot of people out there in the world like me that when they're out there on the court, it's naturally a subjective experience. It's, I feel like this happened. I think that this happened, but that's not necessarily a real experience. That's not an objective experience. And when you think about 5 senses, imagine you robbed a jewelry store. You're going to look at the CCTV footage to see if the person actually robbed the jewelry store. That's what we consider to be the highest standard of evidence of whether something is real or true or not. And so when we're out there and you have this experience as a player and you get to watch yourself play, you realize that the things that you thought internally may or may not have been true. And as a coach, you're able to give people feedback and objectively say that this was what happened, and they can actually see that, and that's one of the best learning opportunities. So for me, never being able to take my best moments with me on court, my best memories were on court. I unfortunately don't have those. I hope that the next kid that spends their life playing tennis captures some great moments and can take that with them, and also have learning opportunities to get better. So those are the real things driving this for me.
I always think that if it's worth talking about, it needs to be measured in some way. And this largely provides a way for someone to be able to measure it, right? The thing that I always look at is when you talk to a player after a match, they remember this point that went 12 shots and it was back and forth. And you look at the statistics afterwards and you realize that 70% of points were 4 shots or less.
Mm-hmm.
But you remember the really long one because it went long. You remember it because people around the match are all clapping at the end of it. They're saying good shot. And so it gets like in that memory much more than, I think the data says that the most common length of point in a tennis match is one shot. The serve happens and it doesn't get put back in play. That happens more than any other length of point. But we remember the ones that were really long and they probably didn't have a huge impact on the overall. This gives you a way to actually measure that. And so you can go back and you can say, okay, that really long point, how important was it? Where did it happen in the match? What was the score? Did it happen because both players got tight and you were both pushing, or did somebody make a great get along the way? So what happened there? And I think that this, having that evidence, right? So now you have a way to
Exactly.
look and say, was this actually an important point? Adds real
Yes.
value to what somebody takes away.
There's a difference between what you think happened and what actually happened, and watching is the easiest way to see what that difference is.
Okay, so I have a question. I know that you can boil a match down. I think the number is there's only about 18 minutes of tennis per hour played in a tennis match.
Something like that. Yeah, you can basically cut the time it takes to watch a match in a third, or cut it down by into a quarter. So you can watch it 4 times faster, 3 to 4 times faster, and that's one of the things that our app currently does. Is you just press record, stop recording, it immediately triggers a proprietary AI process we have to cut out all the downtime, and so then you're presented with a nice interface where you're just watching the trimmed video. And at any point, you can favorite those clips and export them. And when you export them, it has a club logo overlaid, which is, again, one of the value adds we try to add for the clubs, is we want to create an opportunity for them to have marketing materials going straight to their socials. Normally, companies like ours would just be putting their logo on it. We're thinking about ways that we can provide the maximum amount of value to each club or academy that works with us.
I'm currently working on a bunch of things on measuring mental toughness. A lot of people have believed that that's not something that can be measured, and so it's kind of a touchy-feely kind of, does this person have mental toughness? But we broke it down into 4 measurable things, resilience and fortitude, and like that can we can actually measure. One of the ways to measure that happens, what happens between points. So is it possible to just have the between point ritual? So what we actually cut out is the tennis part and leave the, here's what your between point looked like, and then finding where it changed so that you're no longer going to your towel or going to the fence or controlling your breathing or racket and non-dominant hand or any of those things, and then relate that to where the score was, and then we can therefore draw that into how we're assessing mental strength.
That is definitely something that would be helpful to look at. The current implementation that we have in our app today is that you just press a button to trim or untrim the video. So if I'm watching the video, I might, as a coach, I might just press trim, be watching the trimmed highlights, and then at any moment, say there's a bad point, I want to see how the student reacts. I just press trim, video continues, but it doesn't cut to the next highlight. So I can see what's happening between the points. I can see if they grab their towel, things like that. I love your idea of, well, can we actually just isolate all of the dead time, all of the downtime, and display that through an interface as well? That would be very interesting to know. It may not be the most enthralling for somebody to watch, but it would certainly be insightful to know, like you said, was there a time where they stopped going to the towel, or they're looking off and into the distance? Is there a way that we can use AI to recognize when a person is focused or unfocused on the tennis court? Are they looking up at the clouds? Are
Yeah.
they looking at their
So we can
friends or
look
their
at
parents? Or
we can look at how far they fall off. So how far do they go off routine? Now they're not doing any of it, as opposed to they've only let little bits go. And then resiliency, how many points does it take them before they get back on routine, which are things that we could actually measure
yeah,
from mental strength point of view.
yeah, these are fantastic ideas. I mean, these are the kinds of things that get built into a product the longer that you spend on that product. right? You want to build something that's simple, easy to use, and provides as much value as possible. But the more that you spend working on something, who knows where we'll be with technology in 3 or 4 years? Will it be a difficult feature to add to tell a player how far off routine they are? Probably not. Is that something that we're trying to prioritize at the moment? Currently, no, but that doesn't mean that there's not a future in which we are providing that level of detail to maximizing somebody's performance on the court.
Yeah, I think it's now becoming more generally accepted that we have already entered the singularity, and so things are moving fast where progress over the next 10 years will resemble what we saw in the past 100 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're on that kind of exponential growth. And so every time a new model comes out, there's all of a sudden capabilities that maybe you tried to build into something, but it didn't work real well. And now all of a sudden, it works
It's an interesting
amazing.
conversation. I mean, like the approach that we have to cutting out the downtime was a proprietary approach. It's not nothing off the shelf is able to look at a tennis match and say this is downtime,
Hmm?
right? We use deep learning models. We took a data set of 2,000 fully labeled tennis matches, meaning somebody has manually gone and said, hey, a point started here and a point stopped there. And we use that through a process where we feed a deep learning model and say, hey, this is your data, look at it the same way a student looks at a textbook. And so the textbook has the answers in the back, right? So they take that practice test and then they look in the back and they see how they did and they learn from there. And so that's really how like our AI process works. It's much more complicated than that, and it's a
Right.
patentable thing. But my whole point in saying this is it may be totally obsolete in a year or 2 years. I don't know how long this will last. It may be that Google or Apple or OpenAI or Claude release a off-the-shelf model that anybody can toss a video into, and within 30 seconds get the answers that they need. To really understand that, it's like thinking about, well, how do our brains understand anything? And then it becomes a very interesting conversation to figure out what the future looks like for these models and things like that.
Well, I think the key to all of that becomes you, with your experience having grown up in junior tennis, having played collegiate tennis, now coaching players that are playing at the national level. And if you don't know that, I'm telling you that about him. We didn't kind of get to that in the beginning of the intro, but your experience at the sharp end is pretty deep. So that's kind of your moat, is what you would have liked to have had as a player. What you liking that you're having as a coach. You're walking around talking to people that are coaching in facilities and running facilities and
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what they want. And it's not as simple as I'm going to take and I'm going to ask Grok or Gemini or whatever to, here's my clip and break out for me what you want. But it's more,
Yep.
you've now kind of given that to people, so created the scaffolding around what is your own proprietary stuff at the moment. But even if other things come out, you having all of that information, is something that most people that hiring a bunch of engineers, they don't have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot of the startup advice these days is look at the direction that the big companies are heading, because every time OpenAI has a dev day or they demo something new, startups die. Lots of startups die,
That's what's
right?
sad. I'm
Yeah.
curious. Somebody said when they just had their dev day a couple weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
that 1,000 companies went out of business. I challenged somebody to show me 50 companies that went out of business because of it. That while that's a nice thought, um, I don't know as anybody's actually quitting what they're doing, because the big companies, the frontier models, are now trying to
Yeah.
do something that they couldn't do before. And yes, there are companies, I'm not going to name OpenAI, but there are companies that, want to be that product level,
Yep.
as opposed to others, Claude, that with Claude code and stuff, they're looking to have tools that others can build
Yes.
upon.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely, I mean, I wouldn't say the going out of business process is OpenAI has dev day and and your company dies the next day, right? It's sort of a reckoning at that point. If you've built something on top of OpenAI that uses their large language model plugins, and you see that they released what you built, uh, things are not looking good for you. And you might want to consider pivoting into something a little more defensible, which, like you're saying, is definitely a benefit of being in the tennis industry. You know, you want to align, if you're a business owner these days, you want to align your business in a direction that makes sense with where they're going. So you want to be a line that, as that big whale swims through the ocean, you know, even if you're a little fish behind that whale, I can't think of a better analogy, honestly. It is what it is. You want to be swimming behind the whale rather than in front of it, so you don't get eaten, right? And with tennis in particular, like I mentioned, we're building like proprietary models. We're approaching things that we're not even using OpenAI for any of the stuff that we're doing. I would like to use that stuff to build like a conversational AI coach in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But as it stands, you know, the next OpenAI Dev Day isn't going to kill Match Coach. It's just going to build tools that Match Coach can use to develop faster, better, and build a better product. I don't think they're ever going to have tennis coaching on their radar. So that we're safe for the moment. We just have to outcompete the other people who are thinking about the same things.
Before I forget, how could somebody get more information, find out more about the app, contact you directly?
Somebody could go to www.matchcoach.co or just head into the App Store and download the app Match Coach. And it's a pretty straightforward process to get started.
So if I downloaded the app, am I then just looking for facilities that have cameras that are connected? Is that
I think as we launch over the first 10 to 50 clubs, we would like to have a club to club approach. And long term, as we build out AI coaching, we want it to be something that players can record, upload, use it themselves, with a monthly subscription. And so something like that is on the horizon. But right now, you would be getting the most value out of it if you were playing at a Match Coach facility.
yeah, I can envision I'm a parent and my kid is playing tournaments either locally, regionally, or nationally. And one of the things that I'm doing as I'm researching the tournament is figure out if the event has match coach connected
Mm-hmm.
cameras. And so I'm specifically looking at L3s,
Mm-hmm.
and I have an option of I'm going to travel, and should I travel here, someplace else, and looking and saying, oh, this has that available to me, so I can now take that information and bring it back to my coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so now there's greater value for me playing a tournament at a facility that's match coach enabled, I guess is an easy way to frame it.
Absolutely. Again, one of the benefits, if we are able to make a portable streaming system possible, is that it makes it possible for us to partner with organizations like the USTA so that tournaments across Texas can have cameras so that players can actually get coaching on their matches. That would be a very nice scenario to play out where everybody has access to film and equal opportunities for understanding what's going on. And that's really what you'd like, is you'd like a merit-based system where the people that want to get better have the information to do so, and the people that work harder have the opportunities presented to them.
Is there anything that you'd like to tell us about Match Coach that we haven't touched on so far?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that we are actively looking for early adopter facilities. So we have a discount right now, like a 60% discount for our early founding clubs. I mentioned we'd sold 28 smart courts in our first 8 weeks. We're hoping to keep that rolling and keep progressing throughout Texas. Clubs that might be benefiting from Match Coach, especially academies. It makes a ton of sense. This is something that enhances the core coaching product and helps drive revenue. For other new facilities that are opening up, new facilities are always looking for ways to differentiate themselves. They want to create a good member experience. They want to say how they're going to be different from that club down the street. So if anyone's aware of new clubs that might be looking for some technology to power their business and set themselves apart, definitely have them reach out to me. And the last thing would be country clubs. We're always looking to partner with country clubs. They're trying to provide a great member experience. They're trying to provide something for the people that play there that really says, hey, we respect you. We love having you out here. And so technology can be a big driver in that. So those are the three things that we're looking to provide for the clubs that we're trying to work with.
Good deal. I appreciate you being here. I wish you luck, and
Thank
hopefully
you.
we can get you back when you're a little further down the road and be talking about the latest innovations. And
Hopefully we have a 5-year check-in next 5 years, and we can measure progress between the first one, the second one, and the third one.
good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Duey.